We're recording, right?
I hope so.
I think you pushed it again.
Hi, I'm Stephen Ferris, aka Blue Bailey, your in-house legal leather daddy.
And I'm Dexter DeNovo, your DeNovo Diva.
Welcome to the Reading is Fundamental podcast.
A podcast where we talk about and break down legal issues in and related to the entertainment industry.
Why? Because we're attorneys.
And you're not.
This podcast was created with the goal of educating independent content creators who want to make sense of the legal issues they face in their careers.
We welcome everybody, including attorneys, to listen in and learn more about topics in entertainment law. And if you are an entertainment law attorney yourself, feel free to give us some feedback or say something in the comments.
As entertainers ourselves, we know that dealing with the legal issues can be a lot and takes away from the work we want to be doing. But no worries, we're here to break it down for you and give you the good tea on how to navigate these legal situations in your career.
All of this will be done through the lens of our lives, our gayness, our sex positivity, our radical inclusiveness, and our love for Drag Race, which is why this is called Reading is Fundamental, because you need to read your damn contracts.
In today's episode, we'll be talking about fair use, and we know that there's a million videos you could be watching on YouTube about fair use, but I'm pretty sure none of them are taught by a leather daddy and a drag queen.
Ding! Before we get started with the material, we have a little legal disclaimer for you.
The information on this episode is for general information purposes only. Nothing in this episode should be taken as legal advice for any individual case or situation. This information is not intended to create an attorney-client relationship.
Today's episode is going to get us into fair use, but before we get into the meal of the episode, we have some updates for you. Stefan, what has life been in quarantine? 3 weeks in quarantine.
Yeah, so I know that we haven't been recording as much. We actually sat down about a month ago and came out with a recording schedule to kind of get us back on track.
Yeah.
After I finished with ALC and you got back from some vacations. Then I got monkeypox.
Oh, vacation.
What?
They weren't just vacations. They were like work trips too.
Oh, yeah, work trips.
Not just like gallivanting all over. Yeah,
I went to Hawaii, you went to Boston.
And then I went to Boston again.
Which was your first out-of-state performance, right?
I got to perform in Boston at not Roscoe's. At Jacques Cabaret.
Did you replace Naisha Lopez?
She's mysteriously missing.
For like the third week in a
For
row.
the third week in a row. We
on.
got so off topic so quickly. We have so much to talk about. But first, run me through what the whole experience was like.
So I had a close contact with someone who had monkeypox during Pride. I was able to reach out through Kaiser and get a vaccine fairly quickly, but that was because I reached out before pretty much all the Pride parties started sending their mass emails out, telling people that there was an exposure and to get treated. So pretty much I show up to Kaiser on like a Friday. I'm sitting there waiting for the vaccine, and I had noticed that
You were very excited to get the vaccine because you're like, I'm going to be one of the first people, and it's going to be amazing.
I was super excited, and I didn't realize this at the time. Like, I had been working on this like jock strap, so I've been wearing the like same jock strap for like 2 weeks in a row, and I like started to have like some acne on my ass.
Is that what it was from?
Well, it turns out. It wasn't acne on my ass. So anyways, I get the vaccine on Friday. On Saturday, I start feeling really sick. Yeah. I'm having like really bad flu symptoms. I'm sleeping pretty much all day.
Yeah,
I'm waking up in a pool of sweat. I'm achy. I have headaches. And it was very similar to the like adverse side effects I had from one of the COVID boosters. Mm-hmm. So I really paid it no mind. The following day, I was also sick. And at that point,
I remember.
What I thought was acne on my ass cheeks started getting bigger, started getting redder. It still was only like contained to my ass. And then like Monday happened. I think it was July 4th on a Monday or Sunday.
It was Monday. Yeah.
Yeah. So like July 4th comes around, my fever finally breaks. I'm starting to finally feel better. But then I noticed that like all these like red marks are starting to slowly spread across my body. The red marks are painful. They start filling with pus. And it took, I just got out of quarantine yesterday. That was day 22. Basically just waiting for the pox
yes.
to dry up and
So
crust.
so initially the doctor was like, well, you were like, I think this might be monkeypox, and your doctor was like, this is for sure monkeypox.
Oh, yeah, yeah,
And he's
yeah.
like, quarantine immediately.
I emailed my doctor and I sent him a picture of the sores, and he's
Yeah.
like, I think this is monkeypox. But it took a good week. It took a couple days to be able to get a test, and it took a
Yeah.
week to get the actual results back.
Yeah. But you were already quarantined at that time.
I'm very grateful that I'm privileged enough to work from home, so I didn't have to miss out on making money.
Income.
After doing like AIDS Life Cycle and I Am All back to back, I was saying like I need to just slow down and stay at home more. And the
Oh, the
universe,
universe just happened to bring this upon you. I told you I was so proud of you because you were one of the first 40 people
I know.
in San Francisco to get it. And I was like, you're top 50 ALC and
Yeah.
top 40 monkeypox.
Pox.
You got it. I was so proud of you. And I was going to say too, you said that the doctor gave you like 2 to 4 weeks because it's like it just depends on how quickly the things heal, right?
Yeah, so it's 2 to 4 weeks of being in quarantine.
Yeah.
So I went into the clinic the other day and they examined my sores. Basically, the threshold to get out of quarantine is that the sores you have dry up, they scab, the scabs fall off, or the scabs start to develop new skin. So all of my scabs have like a new, fresh layer of skin on them, but that doesn't necessarily mean that I'm healed. Like my body is still covered in red spots. There's a possibility of scarring, and is that why you're wearing the red hair, just to like mask all the spots?
I was like, should I paint on spots today? That we can really match.
But it's really unknown, like exactly how long it will take to be like 100% healed.
And you might still have scars.
Yeah.
For not.
So I've been like purchasing like expensive white lady bandages to like help with the scars. See,
they're rejuvenating.
Rejuvenating, yes. They're like hydrocolloid
skin rejuvenating
thingies.
That sounds awful. And I know that you have hated being at home because you're very much an outside person. And I know that sucked. But I'm also super proud of you because you went and did an interview with, what was it, KTVU?
Yeah.
Or KUTV or whatever. The local broadcast station, he did an interview with them and they like put him on the news and everything. He's like, hey, like we need to tell people in the community that this is like a thing and it's happening and where to get treated and everything. This is my experience. You don't want to do what I did. So I love that. How was that?
It was great. I mean, we talked for about 20 minutes. They only used about like 20 seconds of the actual interview. But we talked about the importance for the need of access to the vaccine, access to the medication, making sure there's equity with access, and for like jurisdictions to start thinking of financial assistance for people that do rely on having to work with the public for work, because it is quarantining like for up to a month or more.
Yeah. So, I mean, what are some, I don't know, tips you could share from people, what you've learned through the experience and things like that, or like what I have to do, which is go get a vaccine now. So what other things like would you tell people about the experience where they can like go get some resources?
So this is quickly spreading between men who have sex with men, but it is not necessarily a gay virus. This can be transmitted through casual touch. If you're a drag queen out there, like working with the public and touching people, you can catch it. If you're just at a bar, bumping into people, hugging people, shaking hands, you can catch it. So I think it's really important to go out, get the vaccine as soon as possible, and just to try to help eliminate the stigma around it. Like, it's not a gay disease, it's not a slut disease. I'm really like getting upset with the people that are slut shaming. It's like all these faggots are out there, like that can't stop having sex, and it's like you can't say that and still go out. It's a contact disease. Like,
I feel like everybody's judgmental until it happens to them. I mean, not to any amount of degrees the same, but it was like HIV still has so much like stigma about it because it's like the gay disease and like whatever, or because it's like it's sexually transmitted, but it's like take the shame away from sex, you take the shame away from the disease,
100%.
And then like what would you say, like if people, unfortunately, if they are caught it, like what did you use besides your white lady patches to like help get you through it?
I felt like I really had to be on top of my doctors. I just like constantly email them with pictures of the sores for updates. There is a medication called TPOX, but just like the vaccine, it's extremely limited and it's only offered in severe cases. It's offered if like the sores are inside your ass and you have trouble using the bathroom, or if they're inside your throat and you have trouble like eating or drinking. Yeah. So just to kind of be the best advocate you can for your own health. I think the most important thing that I found out was just like talking to other people that had monkeypox. It's just such a new thing that
Yeah.
there isn't that much research on it. So
Yeah.
like people are like trying things by trial and error and just sharing community knowledge. Like I learned about these bandages from someone else who posted
Yeah.
online that they had it. Another person posted on TikTok that like taking a bath with rock salt helped dry up like the pus and the sore so that they would scab better.
Just anything.
Just anything, yeah.
Cool. Don't get monkeypox.
Yeah, don't get monkeypox. It really sucks.
I will go get a vaccine.
Yes.
God, I know.
I even called for you today. You said you called and it was busy.
I did call and it was busy.
I was like, I don't believe her.
I did call. Do you want to see my phone logs?
No, I called myself though, and it was like, you're number 11 in line. And then after like 5 minutes, it just basically kind of like, it was like, sorry, we can't help you right now, and cut off.
If the vaccine was like right here and I'll just go get it. I just hate dealing with medical shit. Like, it's awful.
Yeah, and that's where you're going to get monkeypox.
I know.
Just wait till kids start getting this, then straight people will care.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Some kid's gonna get it and it's gonna spread to their whole fucking class and it's gonna be crazy and they're gonna be like, where did this come from? And be like, we just fucking told you. I will get my vaccine. I will get it.
So, I've been at home for the past 22 days. What have you been up to? Extra? Just enjoying your non-quarantine
I'm like,
privilege.
I have just, going out really is what I've been doing.
No, things like
Just,
leaving the house,
leaving the house,
touching people,
having contact with sexual partners, and I've just basically been living your life. I had my first out-of-state gig, which was so much fun. I picked up a gig in Boston. I was gonna go for work, and my boss was like, "Maybe you can like get a gig." And I was like, "I'm not gonna get a gig," but then like, then I got a gig, and I was like, "Yes!" And then I, of course, immediately freaked out because I was like, "Now I have to travel with drag, and I've never done that before." And it all went super.
Did they lose your bag?
They didn't. Oh my god, they didn't lose my bag. I was like, it's gonna be a mini challenge if it happens, right? Like, it's like, what can I do to make this drag happen in a day? But it was great. It turned into like my coworker's bachelorette party type thing, and then they turned into this whole day because my boss is amazing, and she's like, they went out to drinks beforehand so that I could go get ready, and then everybody came to the bar smashed, which was great, and then like,
Did you smash any of your coworkers?
no. And then they like lived for me, which was the best experience ever. It was basically like I had my own private like fan group. It was amazing.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I'm still waiting for video of these stunts.
I know. I literally asked all my coworkers, was like, if you have any videos, but I think that everybody just like, they just forgot about it. But the videos I do have are so funny. There was a lot of my straight male coworkers who went, and I love that they were just like so into it, but in their own way. Like anytime something cool happened, they were like, yes! And they're like, yeah, man. Like, it was so funny.
It's kind of like they treated it like sports.
Yes, like anytime anything happens, like, and then they're like, "Are you guys ready to see Dextra?" And they're like, "Who?" It was so great. I loved it. I mean, like, be you and like support people is really great.
So I'll say, as much as I need to like advocate for my own monkeypox care, you need to advocate for people like taking the fucking video of your performance.
Yes,
or just set up your own.
I wasn't. Could you imagine? It's like I show up with the camera. I'm like, I'm actually recording my own video.
Right. One day you'll have a crew for that.
One day I'll have a crew. I'll have my own like crew to do that.
Jane.
Yeah, and then like I haven't taken any gigs this month, which is kind of slightly intentional because it's like I was traveling so much for the past 3 months and stuff. Like it was crazy. So I've just been like at home doing all the things I needed to be doing. I've slowly been working on other crafts and other looks and stuff like that. So I'm enjoying a lull for now.
Yeah, I'm excited to see. I saw your little glitter jumpsuit. That was a cute moment.
Oh my god, yeah, love that. Segue into main topic.
All right, well, enough about you, Dexter. I think it's.
I was gonna say that you had a thing here.
A cum shot?
Yeah, you have a little spot.
Oh, you want to look it up? A little monkeypox?
Yeah.
That's your vaccine right there. I think it is cum.
Ew! How's it taste?
Salty.
Salty. Look it up. Be a good boy, look it up. I am not a natural. What is it called?
Woman?
No, the. The shade. As I'm like lifting up my boobs. What's it called when you like, or you're like a verbal dom?
Verbal?
Yeah, I'm just not very good at the
I'm
like.
not very verbal either.
I'm like, you do the get down on your knees and stuff.
See, I would be like, get down on your knees, boy. Is that okay? Did I say too much? Too hard? How are you feeling?
You're like, is that okay?
Did I cross the boundary?
Did I cross the boundary? Oh my god! What was the same word again? I'm sorry. Like, I would just be bad to be good with, but you'd be like apologetic afterward. We're talking about fair use. A lot of people talk about it, but we're here to give you all the information so that you can be educated in the future.
In our previous episodes, we talked a lot about copyright. We talked about copyrighted characters. We talked about the copyrights involved in music. And we've also talked about the copyrights involved in sampling.
And in each of these episodes, fair use has come up, but we haven't had a chance to really drill down into what fair use is and how it is applied.
So what exactly is fair use? Jesus Christ.
The vote. The vote. The vote. I don't like the word yesterday. The word yesterday is too hard for me.
Fair use allows you to use others' copyrighted work without using permission, but only in a limited amount of circumstances. For example, using someone else's photographs, music, or video in your content.
Fair use is an exception to copyright law, but the notion of it being an exception is a bit misleading. It's more of a defense that you use after a copyright infringement claim, and it can only be assessed by a court. This means that the question of fair use is behind a paywall. You could be in court paying your attorney thousands of dollars to defend you against an infringement claim, so you don't want to get into that spot in the first place.
So even though a judge is determining what fair use is, it's so important for you to understand what it is so you can start to tailor what you use in your content to avoid any infringement claims.
Fair use is a doctrine that has evolved under the old copyright law and was eventually codified in the statute in 1976. The concept was created to solve the conflict between free speech and copyright infringement.
As we just mentioned earlier, a good example of this is sampling in music. Is music that samples the work of other artists protected under free speech under the First Amendment, or is it infringement under copyright law? Congress and the courts developed a four-pronged test to determine what constitutes fair use.
So we're going to go through each of the four factors with you so you can understand what fair use is and what a court is going to determine so that you don't have to get yourself in trouble right off the bat.
The four-factor test is made up from doing the following analysis. Factor 1. Look at the purpose and character of the content. Is the content used for educational purposes, scholarly? Is it commenting? Is it criticizing? Is it reporting on? At the end of the day, is your content a transformative or artistic expression of the original content?
An example of maybe criticism comment is somebody who's on YouTube and critiquing runway looks, and they need the footage of the runway that might belong to Balenciaga or Dolce & Gabbana or something like that. But in order to give their opinion on it, they need to be able to show what they're providing their opinion for.
We see a lot of copyrighted photographs used in reporting when you need to use an image to refer to, or you're discussing something that's depicted in a copyrighted image.
And one of the reasons why we have education as an exception is because we favor education and free speech over the rights of the people who have this copyrighted content. So we want to make sure that if somebody needs to use it for an educational purpose, that they have license to do that.
So what exactly does transformative mean?
Really, it comes down to if it's making a new type of expression or having a new kind of spin on what the original work is. And we've talked about this before, but the level of creativity and the amount of transformation is really fact dependent. It's really depending on like what it is. It could be as little as adding a filter onto things, and it could be as much as tearing apart the original work and putting it back together. So it really just kind of goes on a sliding scale.
A great example of transformative use that I found in the example of reporting is when you use an image, altering the image with like arrows or circles or color gradients to kind of make the part of the image that you're trying to refer to in reporting pop out.
I'll give an example of one of my favorite artists, Matt Gondak. So he does a lot of kind of pop macabre like Disney characters.
Yeah.
And he really will take the whole, like he'll take like Donald Duck, but then it's like very decayed and like pop art colors and type thing. So it's like he's really, I mean, he's towing the line on fair use for sure, but it's like he's making the comment on the decay of Disney and or like whatever these kind of like big capitalist things are tearing us apart. So he's, you know, innately using the work in order to make his criticism of it. But for example, like say somebody takes Matt Gondak's statues and make a complete replica of it. That's a replica. Like that's not transformative at all. It's a literal copying of what you did and making it again. Then it's like the monetary value of this replica is like you're faking that you're doing an original piece rather than your a spin on what it is.
We're going to get more into that on point 4, but for now, let's move on to number 2.
The second fair use factor looks into the amount of the work that is taken and whether it's a substantial portion taken from the original or whether it kind of goes to the heart of what the original piece is.
A lot of people think that there's this minimum amount of time that you're allowed to copy someone else's work without getting in trouble, but that's actually a myth.
There's no specific duration where you could use somebody's copyrighted work that would count as fair use.
Courts have rejected fair use arguments for songs that only use a few bars from someone else's track. You have to ask yourself, are you taking the heart of the piece regardless of how much you're copying? Think of Vanilla Ice, Ice, exactly, with Queen and David Bowie's Under Pressure.
Under pressure.
Queen and David Bowie actually sued Vanilla Ice for copyright infringement. Vanilla Ice may have raised fair use claims. I don't know. The case didn't actually get tried because they ended up settling in court, which I would say is a fair indication that Vanilla Ice was infringing, even though it was just for those few repeated bars.
This is goes to the heart of what the song is. It's the most recognizable part.
Right.
The example that always comes to mind is, I think we did it in law school. It was like there was a book and somebody was writing an article about the book and they used excerpts from it.
Yeah.
But then they like blew the whole story basically.
I remember that.
It was like a biography or something. And it's like they blew the whole secret basically by using the whole main part of the book in their reporting. So it's like, that's the whole gig, man. Like, you gave the whole thing up. You can't say that that's fair use. Like, it's the whole point of this whole book was this, like, one chapter.
I was also thinking about, like game show sounds and even, like, the Law and Order, like, dun, dun, dun. Even though that's literally, like, a second or two, like, out of the whole 60-minute show, it goes to, like, the heart and the core of what is the, like, identifying copyright of, that's Law and Order, right?
Yeah, the dun dun.
Yeah.
But it's like, then people, and like, then SNL will use it, but then SNL's using it as a parody, so that's like, I guess fair use, but it's like a separate defense.
Which brings us to prong number 3, looking at the nature of the original work. Is the original work artistic or commercial? If it's an artistic work, it's going to be treated very differently than if you were copying a commercial work, such as using like the images from a billboard or a television commercial.
And the fourth factor looks at the potential impact on the market if the original infringement were allowed. If there's no harm to the market, then it's more likely to be fair use. But if the market is strong for this type of thing and the copying looked like
You're a mess.
But if the market is strong for this type of thing and the copying looked like fuck it.
That's why I said take 1 and 2. Or A and B.
Take 1 was fine. But if the market is strong for this type of thing, it looks more likely that this person is going to try to recreate this work in order to stop paying for the rights for that copyright. So things are going to come out a bit differently.
So that may sound a little convoluted, but it really makes me think of the reaction videos that uses 100% of like the episode or the content that you're watching. Like on Twitch or YouTube. Like I've been super obsessed waiting for this new Halloween trailer to come out. It's been taking forever. But had someone posted the trailer early and try to like have their commentary with it, I think the court would see that as like
taking away from the value of the release.
Yeah, taking away from the value of the release, and it would be a reason to remove it for infringement. Same thing with like a new television episode. If you're watching something that's only available on a streaming site and you just try to add your commentary to it, but people can literally view the whole episode through your piece, it will likely be removed for content infringement based on this market problem.
So how is fair use assessed? It's important to understand that these factors are balanced. It's not a checklist of you have to have every single one of the factors. They kind of just take them all together, and maybe one factor would weigh more than the other, but it's in the court's discretion and how they balance each of these 4 factors, which means that a decision may be affected by one judge's personal feelings about the infringement.
So this basically means that just because your work is commentary or it's educational, it doesn't automatically give you defense of fair use. The only person who's going to be able to give you your definitive answer on whether your work is fair use is the judge if you get sued. The attorney will be able to analyze your content and compare it to the content of previous court cases and give you the most likely outcome of how a judge would rule on it. But again, at the end of the day, you are subject to the biases of the judge and how the judge is feeling that day and the judge's own personal views on copyright.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. Like in the film industry, if you're making a film, you'll hire an attorney and they'll give you like a fair use letter, and it's just like this one attorney's opinion about whether or not it is fair use, and they literally will stick that letter into the file and keep it as like insurance defense. Like if you get sued for copyright infringement, it's like, okay, well, we relied on the counsel of our attorney that said that it was fair use, so it's like we're out.
A lot of the times, you won't even get insurance if there's any issues around licensing or fair use until you seek the advice of attorney and they
Yeah.
provide such an opinion letter.
And we're saying like the opinion letter is not like your stamp that it is fair use, and then like you can go out and be like, yeah, my shit's fair use. It's just their thought about what their own understanding of what fair use is and how they might think that a court would determine it. But it's not like carte blanche, like you're like you could just do whatever you want. If it gets litigated, it's still going to get litigated, and the judges are still going to use these 4 factors to determine whether or not it's fair use.
Yeah, the letter will just be one piece of evidence that the judge uses in consideration while going through these 4 factors. And with that, let's take a quick break.
So I just made a video. Nights went out, or the night the lights went out in Georgia. It's not doing well. People aren't seeing it. It's probably because I was infringing on the copyrighted work.
Yeah, we'll go with that. It's the copyright's fault.
It's the copyright's fault.
But speaking of that, I think it's important to address a lot of the misinformation that I've seen going around on social media. For example, it's not just sufficient to say that your work is fair use. Like we said many times,
Can't just claim it.
It's the judge that's going to determine that for you.
And you can't just credit people either. You can't just be like, oh, this copyright belongs to this person. You stole it from that person. Thank you for identifying who the person was.
It's not enough to give them credit. And another thing that I see is people will post a video and then they'll post the text. This is a notice that I don't own the copyrights to the underlying information. Just because you give credit to the original author or you put a disclaimer that you don't own the copyright, it's not sufficient. It's still infringement.
The one exception I would say is I have seen it on Bussy, and Bussy's comments are criticism.
Yeah, so Bussy's actually doing criticism. I guess what I'm seeing is I'm seeing people.
He doesn't need to post the fair use thing.
I'm seeing people post like performances they do where they're using someone else's track, like you were using the Designing Women's monologue, and basically just saying, I don't own the rights to this, thinking that's sufficient for them to use it. It's not. It's still infringement.
So what happens if there's infringement that's done online? So like maybe somebody's taking a full film that they recorded on their screen and then putting it on YouTube or something like that, or taking a full song and posting it on YouTube. They've already kind of figured out ways to get this, and YouTube actually has like a really innovative tool that they use called Content ID, which when you submit a piece of art or piece of work to YouTube, it automatically scans and creates like a wave profile of what that is. And so anytime somebody posts something else, it runs it against their database of previous files. And if it matches, then the newly posted content will be not shown or taken down.
You'll notice you've been flagged by Content ID when you upload a video and almost immediately have it flagged for copyright infringement. And that's because the algorithm has gone through, scanned your file for stuff that it has in a library that's owned by another copyright.
And it is innovative, but it doesn't mean it's foolproof. Like it still has a lot of mistakes that it makes all the time. And there's a lot of gaps in it, and sometimes it's wrong. So they're trying to do their best. There may be some holes in the enforcement or some gaps where they're not able to assess exactly whether it's a copyright infringement, but it does what it can.
Content ID isn't a human. It's not able to tell context. It's not able to tell whether the scans that it's picking up is fair use, is commentary. It just knows that it matches the file of another. And this may result in your content just being outright rejected or in certain cases being demonetized. It really depends on how the copyright holder has chosen to enforce their work.
Another way that your content can be flagged is when a copyright owner files a takedown notice under the DMCA.
So what exactly is the DMCA?
There was the law of the Communications
Decency Act.
Decency Act. It created exceptions, and then the DMCA
Outlines how you do the notice.
the DMCA amended Communications Decency Act to include this copyright infringement safe harbor in the same way that it was amended to include Sesta Fosta. Oh my god, I actually did it. I'm like, I'm just trying, how do I explain this? But like, it amended the law so that if the content hosting person or company makes an effort to respond to these takedown notices, then they are no longer on the line for it.
Yes, so I'm going to try to put this in himbo terms for you. So basically, there's something called the safe harbor that exists. The safe harbor allows platforms to have users and user-generated content and doesn't have the platform be liable for what the users post. For example, if somebody posts something that's a copyright infringement, YouTube can't automatically be sued for copyright infringement because they're hosting the infringed material. Instead, the DMCA outlines notices that as soon as an algorithm picks up copyright, as soon as another user flags something for copyright infringement, as soon as YouTube becomes aware that it's happening, that's when they could be liable for copyright. So this concept comes from the safe harbor, which allows platforms to not be liable for the content their users post unless they're put on notice.
Meaning YouTube also can't be sued for copyright infringement until they know that the infringement is occurring.
As its title implies, DMCA takedown notices provides that requisite notice to the platform.
So once YouTube receives the notice, it must comply with removing the content, or it can also then be liable for infringement.
So what happens when your content gets flagged under a DMCA takedown notice? What do?
You can file a counter notice to YouTube and say that it's fair use. This will bounce back the takedown notice from the copyright owner, but it forces the claimant to withdraw their complaint or file a new lawsuit.
So again, YouTube can't on its own decide whether your content is fair use or not, but it takes the burden off you and puts it back on the copyright owner to give a thoughtful and thorough analysis of your content to see if there's fair use before it can proceed with a lawsuit. So I remember that there was a court case about this that actually put the burden on the copyright holder to do an analysis of fair use before they could proceed with a lawsuit. Because before, copyright holders could just threaten copyright infringement or DMCA takedown notices without really having anything to back it up.
Yeah, I mean, it looks like the Ninth Circuit just basically held that in order to bring a DMCA claim, the copyright owner needs to consider whether or not it is a clear fair use or if it's an infringement or not. So they can't just bring the case for any alleged infringement. They need to actually question themselves whether or not it's a fair use or not.
So I remember this case. This case was Lens Universal, and it basically stemmed from this mom took a video of their baby dancing to a Prince song, and you barely heard Prince in the background, and Universal filed copyright infringement claims and sued them actually for a lot of money. And the court ended up saying that that was a frivolous claim and that Universal really needed to see what the infringement was and try not to pressure people based on the infringement claim.
The DMCA created a so-called notice and takedown system. It gives service providers immunity from copyright liability for content posted by the users if providers take it down when they are notified that it is infringing. There you go.
There we go.
Got a one sentence. All of what we did for 5-10 minutes was in one sentence.
So we talked about what to do when your content gets flagged. Let's talk about some best practices about how to avoid this in the first place.
Really, the best play that you have is to get a license. This is going to be the most beneficial way to have your defense right off the bat. It's not even a defense, it's an affirmative right. If you get a license, you are allowed to copy and you're allowed to use this person's work. I think the biggest thing would probably be if somebody is using music, and particularly if you're going to cover a song. There are licenses for copyrighted musical works where you can go and say, I would like a mechanical license for this song, and that means I get the right to make my own cover of it. Or if you want to play it, you go to ASCAP or BMI or whatever those things are, you get a license to play it at a certain venue. Yes, it costs money. That's the name of the game. Unfortunately, every time you play something on a television, it's going to cost money, but that's the best way to insulate yourself from any liability. And it's also the best way to do it because it's you'd rather pay $15,000 now to license this content rather than go through an entire litigation where it's your team is going to bill $15,000 in a week. This is one of the first things we thought about with Drag Race, though, when it first came out. We're they have to get a stronger budget for, because it's like every lip sync song at the end has to be whatever, and now every time they air something, it's getting more and more, it's getting bigger. You know what I mean? So it's like now it's on like VH1 and it's gotten Emmys or whatever. So it's like now if you want to use a song, now the price is like tripled.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
100%.
So like back in the day in old Drag Race, they had some kind of like backside tracks for things for the lip syncs, and now we're getting Lizzo and Gaga and all the things.
Beyonce, finally. So what exactly is a license? A license is just official permission in writing to be able to use the content in your work. And if you have any questions about whether you have permission or something's fair use, again, ask an attorney. Now, I know we said earlier that there isn't some magic minimum that automatically qualifies you for fair use, but it is a best practice to use shorter clips when possible.
So instead of using the entire runway look, you just maybe use an image of the look that you're trying to comment.
While you're providing commentary, provide commentary in real time as it occurs, as opposed to playing a tip and providing your commentary after. This will embolden your fair use claim that you are reporting on or providing commentary to things as they unfold.
For photos, make it as obvious as possible that you're using it for fair use purposes. Transform the use. You can use arrows or circles to highlight what you're talking about. Zoom in on the specific parts of what you're commenting about. And maybe you even colorize or distort part of the image to make it stand out to show what you're actually talking about.
Yeah, for example, if you were looking at a black and white photo of Dextra and myself and you were referring to Dextra, maybe have Dextra be in color to make it pop out from me so it's not just a copy of the original work.
I'm picturing like this the sports. Have you seen the sports where they do like the line and the arrows?
Sports, no.
But sometimes they do like a line and an arrow and they like circle things and like stuff.
Yeah, do whatever that sports thing is.
Ultimately, just don't steal the commercial value of the art that you're copying. So try and use as little bit of it possible, but enough to make your point.
The key thing you need to remember is your audience watching your content for you, or are they watching it as a replacement for the copyrighted work that you're using?
And just so you're aware, you might run into higher copyright infringement risk when your video is merely copying it, or if you're trying to monetize something that you've taken from somebody else. You can also be in danger if you're using fictional copyrighted material, as that material is the most original.
That's why you see in the Snatch game that you're not allowed to use copyrighted characters, because even though the idea of a Snatch game is parody, copyrighted characters are afforded a higher level of protection.
We get to kind of see like both worlds of that, because it's like, people are like, just let them do copyrighted characters or whatever. Or like, how come they just don't get permission from the studios? It's like, we know in real life, it's nearly impossible.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, and probably like on these productions, they have like maybe 2 attorneys, like 3 attorneys. Like they're swamped with other things. They're getting licenses for, you know, for the actual lip syncs, and they're like making sure that like all the production is going well, all the contracts for all the vendors are doing things or whatever. It's like, they don't have time to be like calling up Disney and be like, hey, can we do Moana? Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, but you would think that VH1 is owned by Viacom, and that maybe like you're able to compile a list of all of the Viacom owned like
you can
family owned characters that would be like available for someone to play.
It's like SpongeBob.
Right.
They own Nickelodeon, so any Nickelodeon stuff.
I know we always haven't been sticking to the format, keeping the entertainment section in, because to be honest, we forget about it sometimes. But in this section, we're going to take a break from the educational aspect, and we find something that's current going on in entertainment news. We'll all come up with a topic and teach it to Jake on the spot and kind of get like our hot takes on it, or Jake will find something and teach me something that I have nothing about. So Jake's been looking up an article. What are we talking about today?
I can't believe you're dead naming me and calling me Jake while I'm in drag.
I'm sorry. So like I said, Jake has found an article that he's just dug up, and he's going to tell me a little bit about it. Hopefully we're going to learn together something new in entertainment news. What are we talking about?
Have you heard of the Top Gun lawsuit?
The Top Gun lawsuit?
Yes.
I have not.
You've seen it how many times?
I'm very anti-Tom Cruise, so I have no...
I thought you've seen it and you liked it.
No, my family has seen it. They told... So I hate...
My dad has seen it 6 times in theaters.
I hate Tom Cruise. I've never seen the original Top Gun. I hear it's kind of gay. But I had no desire to see this. The only kind of like maybe desire I have is that I heard that they actually like film them flying, like Tom Cruise is flying the plane, and that kind of seems cool. But story-wise, I could care less. And now she has monkeypox.
And now I have monkeypox. Thank you. Okay, so I forget. Oh my god, my hair.
Did we talk about this last time?
Did we talk about this last time?
I don't remember. I know you told me about it. a little bit, but I don't remember what it's about.
Imagine we're not even keeping track of what we're talking about. We're talking about the same thing.
There's a good chance that we may have already talked about this, but
Have we? I'm a stoner. Like, you have no excuse.
I've just killed so many brain cells.
Okay, so I was gonna say, when we saw the Top Gun trailer like a few months, 6 months ago or whatever it was,
Yeah,
we
I was
both were like,
hard
meh.
pass.
Yeah, we both were like, meh. And then it came out and it's like had a great success, and everybody who's seen it has told me that it's like really good. So I will see it eventually. But there's a copyright infringement lawsuit filed against the production company who made this new Top Gun Maverick. Apparently, the original rights to the story were sold. It was a real story.
So it's based on
The original Top Gun is based on a real person story.
so MacGyver or whatever the fuck his name is a real person.
Maverick.
Maverick is a real person.
Yes.
Okay.
I'm all in. So he's a real person. This happened or whatever. I don't even know.
Is he also a Scientologist? Closeted?
Is he also?
Was he married to Katie Holmes?
Diametric? Is it called Diametrics? I think it's called Diametric. It's like the.
Let's use a machine.
That's a good drag name. Diametric. It's like geometric with diametric. That's.
Oh my God. How many times are you gonna change your name?
She's like, I grew up in Scientology. My name is Diametric. So yes, it was like actually based off a real life person,
Okay.
and they sold the life rights to this studio to make Top Gun. But apparently, under both statutory law and the law of the license that they had, it expired after like 20 years or something like that, or 30 years. And they're arguing that this new Maverick is outside of that license, and so therefore an infringement, and they didn't get permission from the holder of the life rights in order to make this movie. And the Top Gun producers are counter arguing that the development of the movie was made prior to the expiration of the license. It's just that the release didn't happen until afterward. And there's already kind of like speculation that it's strategic about like when they're filing this, which of course it is. Like every filing is going to be strategic, but it's like
Meaning you could file it before the movie is produced to stop the movie being made, or you could file it after the movie is released and ask for money damages.
yes,
Okay, that makes
exactly.
sense. Okay.
So it's like people are already like, well, why didn't you like sue beforehand to stop the production of it?
They're like, we want that Tom Cruise money.
But they might want the Tom Cruise money. I mean, really, it's like a better strategy all around. If it's an infringement, it's an infringement, regardless of whether it is. But that's kind of like the fact pattern to start, and that's where things laid out. I did sleuthing to find the actual like filing for it.
Yeah.
I just hadn't read it yet.
You haven't read it yet? Yeah, I haven't read it either. Question for you. So I've never seen the original Top Gun. Do you know, does Top Gun start like this is based off a real story? Like this is a true life person? Like does the original Top Gun? Sorry, I think it's gonna die. Does the original Top Gun make it seem in any way that it's a biopic as opposed to like a fictionalized story?
I think it might say like based on true events.
Unless it's like a flat out like biopic and it's going to be a continuation, like I feel like they fictionalized, like they created their own copyrights in the events of the original Top Gun, the other characters that they developed for Top Gun. So even though it was originally based off this person, I think the original is transformative enough to create their own kind of mythos and story around it that would allow them to have the rights to kind of build upon that story.
Yeah.
I mean, if they were going back and basing their
Yeah.
sequel about this guy's life
Yeah.
at another period in time that was following his life, then yes, like maybe you do need the life rights for that.
Yeah.
But if they're taking the story that they've already
Yeah.
created on their own and developed it, I think they're okay to create their own sequel.
See, it's interesting, and like you made that argument with like the comic book things and like whatever. It's like you've created this whole like universe, you should be able to like develop onto that. I think you talked about like the Batmobile or like whatever.
Yeah.
So it's like, yeah, I definitely see that that's an argument. For me, it might come down to like what the contract said. Like, is the contract, it's like specifically for this person's like life events, or is it like for his whole story? You know what I mean? And then it's like, how much artistic liberty are they allowed to take with it or whatever? Is it clear from the outset that it was not a biography that it was like inspired by. You know what I
Right.
mean?
So so even if the first Top Gun is a flat out biography, it's saying this is based off true events. This is the life story of whoever the fuck is in this complaint. Do you think it would be enough to have a similar disclaimer for the second one that's like, this story does not follow the real life events of this person. This is our own fictionalized telling. Do you think that would be enough? Because it seems like
I feel like it's like
this is
I'm
based
giving credit to the person who's copyrighted it.
I don't think it's them giving credit. I think it's saying, like, yes, we based off the original off of this person,
Yeah.
but we're going off into like we're going off into fan fiction right now, and it's fan fiction based off of our own story that we created.
Yeah.
I mean,
I think it's a hard question because it's like you wouldn't do that to like fucking who's rocking man? Elton John. Like you wouldn't do that to Elton John. You know what I mean? Or like Freddie Mercury or whatever. Like you wouldn't go and be like, here's Freddie Mercury too. Like yeah. Brand new. Now with AIDS. Like oh god.
Let's be real. Freddie would have monkeypox. Just like me. Kind of getting back to your point, is Tom Cruise's character, is it the same name as the guy's name?
No.
Was the original guy referred? So
No.
they created a new name for this person. Was he called Maverick?
I think the nickname Maverick was when he was like in the military or whatever.
I think they got the rights to the story that they used, and then they're creating a new story. So I would say that they're totally fine to do that. If they wanted to do a continuation of the guy's actual life and base the sequel on on a like more current era over that dude, then yes, I think they would need to go back and re-up their contract to get the rights.
I mean, this is really interesting only in the fact because it's like a very niche area of law. It's based on life rights and copyrights. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So it's like,
What's a life right, real quick? Because I mean, I'm not.
yeah,
100%
just
sure
the
on what a life right is.
just the license to produce somebody's life story. Like you should have your own rights to tell your own story, but you can give that license to somebody else to like tell your life story.
Okay, so basically, if I were to license my life rights right now and sign a contract with someone, I'm still alive. So does that give them life rights up until this point in time, or does it give it to them extended?
Depends how it's written.
Depends how
and the
it's written.
statute of the state.
So I think like the takeaway from this is that if you're negotiating life rights, you negotiate one when the rights end, and two what point in time those life rights can cover.
Yeah, and I do know. I mean, you still have the right to have life rights after death.
Yeah.
Like your family can exercise them or whatever. So it's like the people who brought the Prince lawsuit were his heirs.
His estate, right?
Yeah, his estate. So it's like you could still bring claims to the life rights because it's like you're using somebody else's stuff. But I don't know. I don't know how long if you agree to something, how long that agreement lasts.
So I guess that Top Gun bullshit was pretty interesting, but let's finish closing out our episode.
So in this episode, we gave you a quick recap of the factors of fair use to help you determine what you might do next time you have copyrighted works in your works.
We talked about what to do when your content gets flagged for copyright infringement, either through automatic content ID scans or through a third-party flag.
And we gave you some tips on using copyrighted works in your material as well.
And that brings us to the end of our episode. Thank you so much for watching Reading is Fundamental.
Let us know what you'd like to hear and write us in at readingisfundamentalpodcast@gmail.com.
And make sure to follow your favorite gay attorneys at Blue Bailey SF on Instagram.
And at Dexter DeNovo on Instagram.
Check out our website at stephanferrislaw.com/readingisfundamental. What do they say about like following and like?
Make sure to follow, like, and subscribe, right?
Make sure to follow, like, and subscribe on your. Make sure to follow, like, and subscribe. Make sure to follow, like, and subscribe.
And read your damn contracts.
Because reading is what?
Fundamental to understanding the terms, conditions, expectations, and obligations of your entertainment agreements.
And that's a wrap.
I don't want to get up because I'm going to see my sweatpants. Literally, I'm wearing nothing.
You know I'm always wearing, like, sweat clothes to your apartment, and you know I'm in trouble when I'm wearing sweatpants.
Why?
Cover the pots.
Oh my god.
Alright.
I love how I read it. I'm like, oh yeah, I forgot the 4 factors. I mean, I know them, but like I couldn't like immediately.
Can you imagine if we had to take the bar again right now? That would be horrible.